Good afternoon, everybody. Good morning, good evening, whatever applies to you as you are tuning into this edition of TW Wrestling Talk. This mid-April edition of TW Wrestling Talk, coming off of Raw from the 15th. Um, and I got left with several different thoughts, several different things to talk about. First of which is the Brock Lesnar Triple H rematch. Um, yes, Triple H and Brock Lesnar 3 appears to be going down at Extreme Rules. Um, and, it's a little surprising to me, actually. But, a lot of people, I'm sure, are not in favor of this idea. And, of course, I wasn't very well in favor of the the WrestleMania rematch between the two, simply because it was obvious Triple H was going to get the win back. But but as far as this rematch with Triple H, this third go around between the two, I'm not very against it. To be honest, I mean, they seem to have a good match at WrestleMania, even though it was kind of you know somewhat ruined of predictability, but this time around, they're going to have a third match. I mean, we get to see Brock Lesnar again, two pay-per-views in a row, fighting. So, it's not a bad thing, I guess. I mean, especially if you're a Brock Lesnar fan and, enjoy what he does in the ring. Um, and, I think, I guess I see this as as long as Lesnar wins, which I would think he would win this third bout between the two. Um, I guess it's not a bad idea. I guess it's a good way for Lesnar to kind of quickly get back momentum. Um, as he's the guy who's gonna be around. Um, throughout the year. He's gonna be facing. He's gonna be in more matches than Triple H is. That's my point here. Um, as a matter of fact, I think his new contract is that may actually see him participating more, if I'm not mistaken, from the details I heard. So, I think it's pretty clear that Lesnar is going to be the one who's going to be wrestling more between the two, anyways. So I think it would make sense that Lesnar wins this sort of best out of three series, if you will, and gain momentum. It appears it's going to be an old school steel cage match. Of course, pending Triple H's acceptance to the challenge, but I would think that that's the direction they're going to go, and that Triple H would accept the rematch. Um, so I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens there. But I'm not too against that idea. I guess, but it makes sense for Lesnar to win this. And I was quite surprised that we saw Lesnar come out. It appeared he was going to turn face for a second, kind of attacking 3MB there. Um, but then soon soon enough he was issuing the challenge with Paul Heyman to Triple H, and that face turn wasn't happening. So that's sad. Although Paul Heyman was a little less heelish towards Triple H, and how Triple H won that match at WrestleMania. So a little interesting there. Um, moving forward, this is like kind of a combination of things here that happen. Um, it appears now that Mark Henry and Ryback are no longer feuding. I find this as a surprise because I thought with Ryback losing to Henry at WrestleMania, I would have thought that they were going to continue that story and have Ryback get his win back at Extreme Rules. But after the events that happened tonight, Randy Orton and Sheamus beating Big Show in a handicap match. It appeared, once Mark Henry attacked Sheamus backstage. Um, and it appeared that maybe now he's going to get himself involved with it. And surely enough, within minutes, they had set a tag match up for Mark Henry and Big Show to team up against Sheamus and Randy Orton for what appears to be SmackDown's main event later this week. So it appears that's the direction they're going now. Henry joining forces with Big Show um, for what will be a near 900 pound tag team. So you know that's interesting, I guess. But although I want to down the road, I want to see Sheamus and Orton. With an Orton turned heel, I want to see those guys feud. I think the match they had going last week, it showed me a little something. Probably would have shown more if Orton, with Orton as a heel, but of course, the crowd had to kind of ruin the match a little bit with the excessive chanting that just got a little too distracting after a while, and it was unfortunate to me, but that was that. And now it definitely appears that Ryback is definitely feuding with John Cena here. It appears that's the direction they're going. Um, Mark Henry now seems to be out of that picture. Um, and it was interesting what they did tonight, I think, with Ryback, particularly. Um, they had about in the middle of the show, they had him with like a pre-taped backstage, um, kind of promo, which I mean, I'm not gonna complain that it wasn't live in person because it kind of had an excuse not to be. They were going back and forth every couple of minutes or so, showing a highlight of the past several months or whatever. Ryback getting attacked by the Shield, Cena, laying down at the Elimination Chamber tag match with Ryback and Cena on the same team. Um, those kinds of things. So, it kind of made for an excuse to for the promo to be pre-taped, and it had a different feel to it. And because of that, I'm not going to complain um, that Ryback, oh, he should have been in the ring doing his promos because he can't do them live in person. And he's not at John Cena's level on the mic in the ring. He can't do these long promos. It appears um, he's more short spurts when it comes to promos. But this segment backstage, I found it sort of interesting. I mean, again, it was a different style, different approach, and it worked for Ryback, I think. Um, the ending was a little funny, kind of you know ended with Ryback rules, and it was, it had a couple moments that were a little shaky to me, but overall, I thought it was pretty good. And at the end of the night, um, it was interesting. I'd have to say. Um, John Cena came out and talked a lot like we expected. Um, he kind of built Ryback up as we expected, and then only to lay some pretty big insults on him. It just I don't. So it kind of makes for sometimes this inconsistent you know mood of John's. Like I don't understand it sometimes. One moment it seems like he's praising the guy, the next moment he's accusing him of not having a brain and genitalia for that matter. But it at least it had an interesting ending. It had us Ryback and Cena staring down John Cena with kind of one of those funny stare faces that he's kind of done a couple times notably, notably when the one time, a little over a year ago, when Zack Ryder was put in an ambulance and he did this stare face that into the camera, and it was um, stuff. He kind of did something like that tonight in the Ryback, and it looks a little funny to me. Um, but anyhow, I mean, Ryback had some insults thrown right in front of him from Cena, and it appeared he kept his cool. Um, and then having not been involved in the show at all, up to this point, out came the Shield, and there's definitely a focus here, with the Shield, attacking both guys and you know costing Ryback his title rematch that was on Raw. It was a ladder match, um, and whatnot. You know, the Shield kind of getting between these two and messing with their heads is a kind of a big element in this story here, in this feud. So, um, but yeah, I mean, the Shield came out, and Ryback was out of the ring, and he just he kind of stood there, took took some steps up the ramp, um, and just watched the Shield wreck John Cena. And again, it goes back to that element of he attacked Ryback several times, and John Cena never came to his aid, um, etc. Now here Ryback stands, letting John Cena get attacked. Um, kind of letting John Cena get a taste of his own medicine in a sense, I guess. It's kind of interesting because you know the way they make it, the way they put this together. Ryback does have some valid points. Um, Whether or not they're gonna push him as a heel or not, I mean, it was whether or not people want to consider him a heel now or still a babyface. Either way, he kind of has a point there, with how he kind of just let the Shield attack John Cena. Um, and the Shield is normal, uh, on top of their game here, attacking John Cena. I mean, there's not doing their normal stuff. I mean, they're like the three meats in an Italian sandwich. I mean, they gel together very well. I know that sounds a little silly. You got the cooked salami and the hard salami and the capicola and yeah. But I mean, it's the point is they gel together very well, and we're gonna we're gonna see the Shield, on next week on Raw face Team Hell No along with the Undertaker. That's interesting, because I was hearing how somebody had a sign at WrestleMania after the Undertaker won. There was a sign that said, that read "See you next year, Undertaker," and I mean, I just you know, yeah. See, Billy Madison thinks it's funny, and it's definitely interesting that the Undertaker's actually going to be in a match. I mean, albeit it's a 3-on-3 tag match against the Shield, but it makes sense how the Shield, with the Shield coming out last week on Raw, appearing to about to be attacked, and then Kane and Daniel Bryan coming to Taker's aid. Um, it makes sense and it's interesting. And since I guess they don't quite have a clear cut idea of what they're gonna do with the Shield yet, um, the next pay per view match they have with them, this makes sense. But after seeing the kind of match that the Shield had at TLC, I'd love to see what they do with the Shield at, Extreme Rules. Could definitely do something good with them at Extreme Rules. So it's interesting what they're doing here with the 6-man tag match. It's going to feature the Undertaker. Um, So, and it's as usual. I mean, the Shield is, to me, the Shield. As I said earlier, um, they just gel together very, very well, and so that's that. Other thoughts? I mean, with this Raw, bottom line, Fandango, however you want to pronounce it, is. I mean, it's silly. I mean, Jerry Lawler comes out and talks about whatever, shows this little video package of people on camera, just randomly humming or singing, whatever you want to call it, Fandango's theme song, and people on the news or whatever. I don't know what it was, and several different filmings of just people humming the song, and to me it was just silly. I mean, it clearly makes it look like his theme song is more over than himself. I mean, and this is silly. Uh, and I mean, the guy comes out last night on Raw, and I don't hear anybody. I mean, I mean, go back and watch that. Go watch his entrance on Raw if you haven't yet. If you didn't notice how quiet the audience was and how much they didn't seem to care and how they just sat there and watched this guy come out like like nobody knew who the hell it was, and for that matter, he's got to give him one of those. For that was one of the most unexcited receptions I've seen. I mean, I'm sitting there like I'm not hearing any. I'm barely hearing even a murmur in the crowd. Um, so it just goes to show you this, and he's coming off a win of again over Chris Jericho at WrestleMania, and I mean, are you kidding me? And this is the guy comes out, and that's the reception he gets. And for the record, I barely heard anybody humming his theme song here live on Raw. Um, so it's it's a failed gimmick, and that's the bottom line to me. There's no there's no place for this. This gimmick is not going to get him far at all. It's silly. It's stupid. It's nothing legitimate. It's nothing you know kind of brutal. Nothing that I can take very seriously. I mean, he's got this Dancing with the Stars theme song, kind of theme music, and to me, there's just not a place for that in wrestling, unless, there's not a place for that in wrestling. That's the way I see it. And, I mean, yeah, I mean, he gets this very quiet reception when he comes out, and quite frankly, I don't even know if I tuned out then, or if I don't even remember what he did. So this guy is a flop. There's no need for him to have this gimmick. It's not gonna do anything. I mean, it's not something like Ryback's gimmick or the Shield's gimmick, and some of this other new talent that actually seems to have a unique um legitimate direction. The emphasis here is the guy more on him dancing than doing anything related to wrestling, and it's just it's silly, and it's a waste of time. Kinds of like tons of funk and other gimmicks like that. Whoa, glitch there! I accidentally hit the key thing on my soundboard, and it just seems to activate everything. But sometimes those things happen, like on Raw. So yeah, I mean, a little embarrassed after that, but not really. But that's those are kind of my thoughts on what transpired this week on Raw and everything, and I guess we'll see what happens with SmackDown later this week. Um, oh, of course, now that I think of it, they made a triple threat for Extreme Rules. Dolph Ziggler, Jack Swagger, and Del Rio. Um, before I cut this edition of TW Wrestling Talk off, I guess this is alright. I mean, I didn't, I kind of expected a rematch of some form with Del Rio and Ziggler at Extreme Rules or at some point for the championship. But I'd rather it be a triple threat match with Swagger thrown in the mix. Um, but the bottom line is, I'm hoping Ziggler wins this triple threat match. I don't quite know how much of a long term, whether or not he's going to be a long term champion. I don't, he could be a 3 to 4 month champion holder. But to me, at least, you got to give him a couple good wins, a couple successful defenses as champion, here as world champion. And in a triple threat match at Extreme Rules against Ziggler and Swagger, I guess would be a help, good help. Even though I don't really think either of those opponents are, quite legitimate, as I've voiced in the past. But I wouldn't mind as much if Swagger became world champion than Del Rio. Just because Swagger comes off as a little more legitimate as a wrestler, um, a little more brutal in his style, and more legitimate to me than Del Rio ever has, and seems to ever will. So yeah, that's my thought on that. My thoughts on that, and we'll have to wait and see how things proceed in that feud. So with that in mind, that'll do it for this edition of TW Wrestling Talk. Excuse me. Thanks for tuning in as always, and I encourage any comments, any questions you'd like me to discuss, or anything, or answer. Um, but bottom line is, I just encourage the continued viewing of this channel, and tuning in weekly.